The SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Shady Rays. Go to shadyrays.com and use code SGPN for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Oh man, that's fun. That's fun.
I'm feeling good.
I'll have to figure out a way to make that trail off or something at some point. But yeah, I like that. You know what I mean? That's a fun intro that gets the people going to talk some rookie drafts, which are right around the corner. I'm happy to be joined by Justin Bruni today, our lead editor-in-chief. How you doing today, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. Another Sunday closer to football, another Sunday closer to the NFL draft. I want landing spots, man. You know, I love talking about some of these rookies. I love talking Dynasty, but for the love of God, let's get a landing spot. What we got? 12 days? 12 days,
12
baby.
days.
Let's ride.
It's coming up quick. I'm super, super excited. It's hilarious. I saw that SGPN little picture you have up there, and I was like, "Oh, Justin, you got like a little SGPN picture like I do." It's like a little Photoshop picture of the background. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I had to edit Wayne's basement here. I'll have to get you a thumbnail up here. You know, I've got what is it, Ryan here? Yep, there it is. Because we got flipped cameras, and then we got Sean up here. You know.
I love it. Yeah, well, why don't I have a beautiful picture on the wall?
Yeah, you do. Well, you're winning Super Bowls.
I think I should be in line for the most handsomest man, at least at SGPN, but I won't dive into that too much here. But yes, we will dive into.
If you want to go to war, we'll go to war, buddy.
You have the best hair at SGPN.
Hair plays a lot. It's a big factor, pal. It's a big factor.
We'll dive into some rookie ADP today. And we with the NFL draft right around the corner, we wanted to do some rookie buys and sells before the NFL draft. And I used the wonderful tool, rookie ADP tool over at the Face Off Sports Network, the place that I work. It allows me to sort for just April drafts in particular. So we're getting the most recent one quarterback ADP. So that's where I want to lead off today, starting off with CJ Stroud at 9.44. That is just a little, I don't think this is an analyst pick or anything like that. I think this, I think he slips a lot farther in an analyst league, but I am just going to tell CJ Stroud going in the first round of a one quarterback league. I think we had similar feelings before the show when we were talking about it. I think obviously I know where you're headed. Tell the people why CJ Stroud is not a pick in the first round of a one quarterback league.
Well, you're just not playing to the most upside here. And when you're going after one quarterback anyways, if you're at about pick 9 and you have a quarterback available to you and you absolutely need one, you're just starting. There's going to be more value coming up, and more likely you're going to have another second round or third round pick. I think that you're just probably reaching. And the consensus that you and I have is that if you are going to take a quarterback at that ADP specifically, you should be shooting for the absolute highest ceiling. Like, you need a home run of all home runs here. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you'll know that like me and Emerson will disagree on probably Bryce Young more so. But if you're not pulling him up to this space, right, then you're absolutely going to be doing it with Anthony Richardson. Like we had said, he has that highest upside based on the size, the athleticism, the speed. I think that CJ Stroud does have the safest floor. But if you are picking a quarterback at this ADP, you need to bring home, a generational return. So looking at that landscape between these three quarterbacks, Richardson has that highest upside, Stroud the safest floor. I think that Young may have a similar upside, but I think that he has the lowest potential floor of all of these guys based on his size and, potential injury woes that I know that a lot of us in the community have been discussing. Obviously, like I just said earlier, we need landing spots. It's going to help out a lot more. But regardless, I think that is how we're gauging the ceilings and floors for each of these guys. Richardson is the most adequatable to slot into, a pick 9 through 12 in round 1 of a single QB superflex.
Yeah, and, like you said, CJ Stroud just not shooting for that upside because I just see him more settling into that quarterback 9 to 15 territory. He just doesn't have elite rushing upside. And if you don't have that, I think 300 to 500 yards is absolutely within his range of outcomes, but he's not nearly like as athletic as Dak Prescott coming into the league or anything like that. You need to be such a high level passer to be a difference maker in one quarterback formats. If you're not a big rusher, so you need to be Patrick Mahomes, you need to be Justin Herbert, and those are guys who add a little bit with their legs too. A few hundred rushing yards usually, but that's what you're looking for if you are going to select more of a pocket passer. And he does have some of the best mechanics in this draft, very accurate, just not someone, in a super flex draft, I'm taking him second overall after Bijan Robinson. But that's just because.
And again, in that format though, that at that pick, you're just not going to have options after him. Once Stroud goes, Young's going to go within a pick to 2 picks. After he goes, Richardson's going to go within a pick to 2 picks, just based on the needs in your draft, right? In this situation, it's honestly, you just get to wait. I mean, it's kind of the benefit of single QB. You don't have to be first to market. You don't have to win that race to the first quarterback. You kind of revert back to, when you're looking at just regular redraft single QB format. Why take a QB early when you can take one in round 7 or 8? It's a very kind of similar, way to attack the positions and, leverage your draft spot.
Yeah. I think, you're just depending in a super flex league, quarterbacks are so valuable. Getting a super flex starter for a long period of time. Yeah, that's a very valuable, I'm willing to take him at the number 2 spot, especially when you consider the safety, that he has a much higher floor than a player like Anthony Richardson. So I'm absolutely willing to take him at 2, but I am fading him in one quarterback format. It's not somebody I'm looking at before maybe the early second round, late second round, early third round, if I was going to select a quarterback in a one quarterback format. But I don't know if there are a lot of great prospects this year for that.
Right. And just for reference too, I don't say to folks like, oh, you should go take Anthony Richardson at 9. If you have that extreme need to take him 9 through 12, then by all means go ahead. But I still feel like you don't need to be first to market right now unless just the circumstances are completely dire.
Yeah, and I just see the floor on Richardson is bottomless. So he's not someone I'm shooting for in one quarterback formats either personally. So with that, we will dive into the next player here. But before we do, I just want to give one more quick shout out to Shady Rays. Kick off the new year with new gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all eyewear too. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by their lost and broken replacement guarantee. With Shady Rays, you can look good and feel good too. To date, they have donated over 20 million meals to fight hunger with Feeding America too. Exclusively to our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the new year. Go to shadyrays.com and use code SGPN for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. The SGPN is also doing an NBA Survivor Challenge. Make sure to check out our NBA Playoff Survivor Challenge, completely free to enter, and the winner gets $250 cash and a $100 SGPN gift card exclusively on the SGPN app. Next up with these rookie ADP analysis, I have Roschon Johnson, who I imagine I'm a little higher on Roschon than you, but I know I think we're both going to find him a value in one quarterback leagues at 18.78. So that is towards the middle of the second round. But I think that's a great value. Roschon Johnson is someone I've been sneaking more and more at my boards. I have him as my RB6 right now, but that could end up going higher if he ends up getting the day 2 draft capital that many are predicting. What are some of your thoughts on Roschon Johnson at that ADP?
Absolutely love the talent. Potentially one of the best pass blockers at the running back position in this draft. Going to be a solid power runner. Landing spot going to help out a lot. But he's someone that I'm targeting at the back end of round 2. I have started my first startup of this offseason. We've got kickers involved for draft picks, and I really faded running back early. And I was able to come back around with a late first, couple of second round picks, and I plan with that 0 RB strategy, not attacking the running back position until the double digit rounds of a startup. I'm going to attack this space for running backs because it feels very bountiful for running backs to be available in this mid second round, late second round. And Roschon Johnson is a name that I absolutely have circled. So at this ADP, what did we have him down on around pick 18?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a buy for me. I'm very good. I'm very good with the middle of round 2. I feel that the evaluation of running back talent in this class specifically is super subjective. I know some names that we still have to discuss that have been going well ahead of Roschon Johnson, at least in super flex formats, which I'm most used to. But I don't feel that it's going to be unlikely. I don't feel that it's likely, to see him go before pick 16. So at pick 18, I feel like that's a good place where I'll feel ready to pull the trigger. Middle of the second round. Of course, you want to play it with the available picks that you have left, reading the board. If there's still a ton of running backs available, maybe you try to get him around later or with another pick that you have coming up if you've been stocking up. But I feel very comfortable with that ADP. If I took him at pick 16 in a super flex, pick 16 to 18 in a single QB, trading hairs. I'm good either way. I really like the talent. Just give me that landing spot. Give me a solid location where I know he's going to be on the field and I don't have to feel like I'm reaching to get him because I like the talent so much.
He just does all those little things that I think are going to get him on the field. He has a physical frame, unlike a lot of players in this class. He's a strong pass blocker, like you said. He had the unfortunate of playing behind Bijan Robinson most of his career. So analytics are not, if you're an analytics guy, Roschon Johnson's not going to pop because he just wasn't on the field that much. So,
more tread on the tires, baby. Let's ride.
Tread. Yep, absolutely. And he's just he's a dog. It's like people like to say now. He was a leader in that Texas locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, he's going to get on the field early because all the things he does well. He's extremely tough to bring down. He's an adequate route runner, although that was never like a big. His targets per route run was actually fairly good in college, although he didn't get to do that very often playing behind Bijan Robinson. He's someone who the NFL draft apparently really likes. If he sneaks into the second round, I could see ranking him as high as RB 3 or 4, honestly. So we'll see what happens. Landing on the Cowboys, imagine. I was just talking, imagine if he was on the Cowboys. Is he a top 18 running back already in Dynasty?
I was just going to ask you about two landing spots, and Dallas was one of them, so I'm glad you brought him up. What would you think about a Dallas versus Minnesota landing spot? It feels like Dalvin Cook is all going to be but out the door by draft night, if not on draft night. I like the idea of pairing Roschon with an Alexander Madison, with a Tony Pollard. I feel like those would be a very good 1-2 punch set of combinations there. What do you think about either of those landing spots? Or maybe the field is better? What do you think?
I like both those landing spots. I think they are great, landing spots that, are good, decent for 2023, but even better for beyond because Tony Pollard, Dalvin Cook not locked in to Dallas and Minnesota for the long term. That would vault him into top 20 easily, dynasty running back territory for me, flirting, maybe with, somewhere top 18, somewhere right in that territory. So I really like Roschon Johnson, and the people, there's a lot of people that love him even more than I do. I think that I was just listening, the guys I work with over at Player Profile have him at like RB3 or something like that right now. So,
wow. I love that. I love that. But do you really feel like you could take that as an actionable ADP though?
No, I don't think you should draft him there. But if you feel that way and you only have one pick, I would move. Wow. I would move down. But it's aggressive. I think it's mainly due to the fact that players like Jahmyr Gibbs, there's a couple more like him, we'll get into it a little bit, but can Gibbs carry enough consistent volume to be a top 12, in Gibbs' case, a top 12 running back on a consistent basis? I'm not sure about that either, but we will chop it up here a little bit more. Next up here, I have Tajay Spears. Yes, Tajay Spears. Fumbling over my words there. This is a player that I really go back and forth on because you look at the film, he's very smart. He hits that hole quickly and then he's gone. I say he's gone. He's very smart, which he creates separation. He's great in space. Well, he's good at creating separation between defenders. He runs defenders into blockers. So you really like watching that on film. I guess what I worry about is, he reminds me of Devin Singletary a bit. He's solid vision, but just doesn't have although he did catch passes in college, he's not a particularly adept route runner or anything like that. It was a lot of screens and everything. And he just doesn't have his NFL combine was not great. He's not extremely athletic. So I just wonder if he has that kind of speed to be, a quality fantasy football running back. However, I do think we're talking about a guy, finished off his career with 8 100-yard rushing performances in a row. Just a super smart runner. Like I said, you watch him on film, and he like I said, he is a great in his brain. He is a great running back. So if he had a little bit more physical tools, he'd be a lot higher in my rankings. So he is someone who I would be just holding at that ADP. I would actually probably drop him just a little bit of spots, just based on who's behind him a little bit. I would have Abanikanda ahead of him. I would have Roshan Johnson ahead of Spears. These are just a couple guys who, and in this ADP at going at 17, he's ahead of those guys. So I would drop him just a little bit. So I guess he's a sell, but it's not too far down. What are your feelings on Tajay Spears?
I don't hate him. He's definitely someone that I am not up against taking in the mid to late second round. So I would say the ADP is buyable. I don't think you should have to sell this ADP. I don't think it's a complete I don't think it's complete waste looking at him. I mean, love me some Tulane running backs. Huge after catch ability, speed, get him out in space. He's going to be fine. You would reference the screens over, potential route running. He's a nightmare for linebackers here. And while I do feel like he's going to be relegated to a role in a backfield, he's not going to get a ton of touches. I think that his skill set and his ability is going to translate very well to an NFL team. This is a big landing spot factor player because, again, if he goes to a crowded backfield where he's going to be more of, a gadgetry type of player where he's getting reverses, he's getting some screens, probably on special teams if he's not, the 1-2 guy in his running back group on whatever team he's drafted by. But the skill set is just phenomenal. He is PFF's running back 8. Johnson and Abanikanda, for reference, are 11 and 16. So he is looked at a very high regard from an analytical standpoint. My concern is like when I'm comparing, if I'm sitting there on the board, it's the middle of round 2, and I'm looking at Roshan and I'm looking at Tajay back to back, and I want to take one of them, which direction would I go? PFF has Spears up about 3 spots over Johnson, but I would probably still say Johnson because of the size, the frame, and what I feel like is the ability to keep himself on the field more often than not. The pass blocking, the power running. Tajay, you're not going to trust him to pass block. You're not going to trust him on third down to run that perfect route like you had mentioned. But I do think that he can have a role on a team. So I don't hate this ADP, but again, if you get a landing spot, say like, I don't know, like the Giants or Seattle or the Ravens by some means, right? Coming down, he's probably going to move back down to the third round. So he is definitely a fantasy asset right now in Dynasty where he has, I think, a lot to lose without the right landing spot. I could definitely see him slipping. Right now, based off of what I know about him, I feel like he's adequatable at his current ADP. Can't talk this morning.
Spears is kind of like, he's kind of like a 6'7" center in the NBA. He's a tweener, in my opinion. He kind of fit. He's not a guy with a strong frame, but he's kind of, he's over 200 pounds, that kind of that right around barely. 200 pounds, barely. And, that was him bulking up this offseason too. Right. But he's not particularly fast either. So he's not a quick running back. He's not fast, but he's not a big physical runner either. So, I just concerned about, are we going to see consistent volume? Like I said, I compared him to, and I've heard a lot of people compare him to, but I compare him to Devin Singletary as well. I think that's a solid one. So we will see about his, will depend on landing spot, but if he slips somewhere in the 3rd round, 4th round, I'll be comfortable selecting him as a top 10 rookie running back. Before we do, I'm just want to give one more shout out before we go to the next one to our friends over at Underdog Fantasy who help us pay the rent over here. Underdog Fantasy is a great place to get down on fantasy and player props all year long. Underdog Fantasy has your favorite NBA, NHL, and MLB daily games. Plus, they're already doing best ball drafts for the 2023 season. Me and Justin have fun doing those. We've already done a live underdog draft, and like I said, I'm addicted, and I can't help myself. I've already done about like 20 super flex drafts, 31 quarterback drafts, so it doesn't help. But my I'll tell you, my girlfriend, she certainly doesn't like it either. So I hope, hopefully it doesn't cause a breakup.
She's going to like it a lot more next February when you're rolling around in 200K.
Yes, exactly.
Tread lightly, Mrs. Analyst. Tread lightly.
I'm settling, I'm trying to sell her on this being long-term investments. You know what I mean? It's, instead of people investing in things like a 401k or or like stuff on Wall.
What is that?
Stuff on Wall Street that's just going to crater in a tanking economy or anything like that. No, Underdog Fantasy will always be there. Put your money where it's going to be safe. That's what I say. And be sure to also use our promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That is underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN.
I love Underdog, guys, but withdraw your money as well, okay? Emerson and fucking Rob, they keep all their money on there like they're hiding it from the Cayman Islands or something, or hiding it from Uncle Sam. Like, come on.
Yeah, they can't track it. The IRS can't track it. They can't track that. Yep, that's where I just keep all my funds. I don't even use bank. I don't even use banks anymore.
I've seen you're in Rob's account. I'm just like, I'm lowly over here with like my $10, like with my, my little buy-in for my next draft. Like every week, I'm just like, give me that back. Give me that back. Give me that back.
All right. And I just do that little pause there for our listeners on the Apple podcast. You might have just gotten a little extra ad space there. So with that, we are going to dive into my next player here. I have up Israel Abanikanda. This is my guy. Justin knows this. I just love the upside here. You know what I mean? In a class where I just don't know about Jahmyr Gibbs. Can he carry a full workload? Devon A-Chain, even more concerns about him in that regard. Israel Abanikanda, explosive, super strong frame. He had over 1,500 rushing yards last year. He was fantastic. I just see this as a guy who has a really high range of outcomes. While it may not be likely, I think this is a guy who could potentially has that top 12 running back upside. He did have a reported pro day initially that his 40-yard dash was between 4.27, 4.32, which is absolutely ridiculous. We can assume pro days are always a little inflated. It got reduced to like kind of 4.4, but for his size, that's amazing, especially for a running back. So I'm really excited about Abanikanda, and I just am waiting for to see if the NFL likes him as much as I do. As much as I love my own advice and however much as I research, I really do put a ton of research into these rookies. However, I do tend to lean on what the guys making millions of bucks thinks too. You know what I mean? NFL teams, NFL evaluators. So this is a guy who goes on day 2. I'll be super excited. What are some of your feelings at that ADP, which I did not read? It is 23.44, which I mean, that's people that's too low
right now.
That's going to go way up.
I've already seen it going way up, and that's why I was immediately going to say it is to slam him at pick 23 or pick 24, because I'm seeing him go between picks 14 and 16. I think I've seen him go at pick 13 now, the first pick of the second round.
I think he's going round 1.
I haven't seen that yet, at least in my own personal mocks, but I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. Right now, there's a ton of hype around him. Everyone's picking up the go Izzy train, and that's fine. I think he's got a great size and speed combination, but I don't think that he's an overly fast or elusive running back. And while his size will probably keep him on the field, I see him as a project for NFL teams. He's going to be 20 years old in October. That is A1 criteria for a running back in Dynasty, because even if you don't get,
I think he's gonna be 21. Right? I think he's gonna be 21. I think he's 20.
Pull that up really quick. But either way, still super young.
Very young.
I thought that he was turning 20 in October. Maybe I got the Octobers mixed up here. But regardless, he's going to be a great project. And as I said, not super elusive, good combination of size and speed. And that kind of, gets me into that Roschon Johnson territory where I believe his assets and his skill set can keep him on the field more often than not.
Yeah. 100%.
He just turned 20 years old in October.
Yeah, wrong
October.
He's not even going out for beers yet. He
not a drinking age yet for Mr. Abanikanda.
He can't even go out and celebrate his new vaunted rookie ADP with a celebratory shot or a beer or anything. So he's not turning 21. So despite him not having a strong receiving role in college, I think he is fully capable of growing into that. I haven't seen like stone hands or just like he's out there running around like I don't know what's going on. So I think when we see lack of receiving production in college, we automatically think this guy can't do it. I like Kenneth Walker last year. I don't know if this is a major concern. We saw Kenneth Walker have a couple of games last year where he had high targets. So I think he could certainly grow into the role, although the floor for Abanikanda is a little bit lower than some other players. The next man up here, I have Jalen Hyatt at 13.89. I'll start off with you here. Do you are you a fan of Jalen Hyatt? He's a very polarizing prospect. Some people have him very high, some people are very low. Where do you stand?
That feels high. I mean, from what I've seen from mock drafts, it feels like I could probably get him another 4 to 5 picks later. Again, like you just said, it's very subjective. Everyone's predeterminations of these players. I think a lot of assumptions will be made once we do get landing spots. A landing spot I love for Jalen Hyatt is staying right there in North Carolina. Put your hands up. I feel like he'd be a very good fit with the Panthers. They are going to be bringing in Adam Thielen, DJ Shark on pretty much one-year deals or short-term deals. Maybe Thielen has a 2-year deal. I'm not sure, but I know Shark is only on a 1-year deal. I think he would be a great weapon, a great field breaker for a young quarterback, a young developing QB. I think the biggest slight on Hyatt is that he's fast, right? Like, so they ran him a ton out of the slot, going just full verts a lot. So people, I mean, while he is a good route runner, people have kind of like relegated him to like almost a DK Metcalf type of narrative because, oh, he only runs straight. But obviously, if you look at Jalen Hyatt, you'll see that he's shifty, he's elusive, he's got great speed. Some say he's too fast. His starting speed is way higher than his stopping speed. I don't know if that's a good problem or a bad problem. That sounds like Mendoza from the Mighty Ducks too. And I think, with the right coach, with the right Bombay in that situation, you're going to be able to coach him into a pretty good scenario. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm a big fan of Jalen Hyatt. That ADP though, 13, first pick of the second round. I don't know. That feels a little rich.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Jalen Hyatt. He's a downfield threat who doesn't have that downfield frame really. He's 5'11", 170 pounds.
He's not Mike Williams.
And his door was open last year a little bit by the fact that Cedric Tillman struggled with injuries, so that kind of opened up the door. He did have a very productive season though. There's no doubt about that. I do just think that potentially he could be a better NFL player than a fantasy player. NFL evaluators are drafting him based on the fact that he can open up the offense. One or two defenders are going to be trying to keep up with him way downfield, which will open up things in the short game a little bit. So
yeah,
I just wonder about his consistent volume. So obviously that's a sell for me at this ADP, but it's be hard to argue if he goes in the first round of the NFL draft, which he could still do. It'll be hard to argue with him. He probably would turn into a buy at that ADP all of a sudden. So it really depends on where the draft capital is for me. But just for me personally grading him, I didn't have him particularly high. He's my wide receiver 8. He's my wide receiver 8 in my rookie rankings right now. But like I said, NFL evaluators are a little bit higher on him just because of what he can do for the offense. Before we jump into Marvin Mims, I just would like, if you're still listening, if you could give us a quick subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, rating, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, it would be really appreciated. And of course, this wonderful ADP is also brought to you by the Face Off Sports Network, and they have all these wonderful resources on their Dynasty content as well. Marvin Mims next up, 22.0. This guy is a guy who I actually have just moved him to my wide receiver 5 in my rookie rankings. I really like Marvin Mims. He excels against man coverage. 21 yards per reception is as elite as it gets. He lines up inside. He lines up outside. He's a little bit in a class. He doesn't have a strong frame, but in a class of shorter and skinny players, he is a little bit larger. And I mean, he blew people away at the NFL Combine. He just has a little bit of everything. So I am super excited to get into Marvin Mims here. And like I said, he's just a guy who I've had as my wide receiver 5, and I moved ahead of Jalen Hyatt. I moved Marvin Mims ahead of Josh Downs. And, like I said, I just think he does everything very well. And I've seen, and what's caused me to be more confident is I like the prospect profile. Now I think the NFL evaluators are following too. I see him getting slotted into that mid-second round range. Have you done some research on Marvin Mims? Do you have any feelings?
Yeah, I love the playability, but it just feels like he's got to go to a very good system because he was drawn up open ridiculous amounts at Oklahoma. I had 19.5 yards reception or 20 yards reception doesn't really make a difference. It's just an insane number, right? I think that can translate to the NFL. I like the size. I like the frame. He's small. He's at 183, but I think he'll put on a little bit more weight, a little bit more NFL size, and I think that'll help translate because I feel like he can be very reliable in the intermediate and the deep route tree. So I like him a lot. What was the ADP at?
That was at 22.0.
I just don't feel like others are as high on him. You know, I guess I don't hate that at the end of the second round, beginning of the third, but and again, you know, my leagues are different than your leagues. Our listeners' leagues are different from all other listener leagues. You got to know the people that you're playing with. I feel like I can get him later, so I don't know if he's a huge buy at that ADP for me. You know, the closer we get to the draft, though, I mean that's definitely going to change, or it can change. So I would say he's probably a hold or a pass at that ADP for me, just because of my interpretation of my leagues. I feel like I can get him at better value.
I think you're going to see that ADP go up. I think that's going to be early to mid second round.
It may very well. It may very well, yeah.
I think that'll slip up a little bit. Especially if he goes in round 2, I think I could see that going up to mid to early second round. We will see in one quarterback formats. The next player I have up, we're jumping back up to the top of the board, Quentin Johnston at 6.83. The big news this week is that he was not invited to the NFL draft. So
sad.
The NFL draft absolutely hates, and this is actually big news, because the NFL draft absolutely hates when players are sitting there and they're not being taken. They're sitting there in the draft room and they're not taken. It looks bad on TV. They hate it. So they put a lot of research into who they invite to the NFL draft. They want to make sure these are early selections. So Quentin Johnston not getting invited does suggest some trepidancy. I saw a recent article that, you know, the research that they did suggests that they think he will go between picks 20 and 30, actually, which is later than a lot of fantasy analysts have been talking about lately. And potentially, and they were worried, and this is why he didn't get the invite, he could slide into the second round. So I feel like we were kind of banking on him kind of going 10 to 20. You know, it was kind of it was kind of what the tea leaves were showing, maybe the New England Patriots, maybe the Houston Texans.
I agree.
And now it seems to be put in doubt a little bit. How do you feel about Quentin Johnston right there?
Well, and just for reference too, I think only 17 players, 17 are arriving at the draft or will be there participating in the event. So I don't want to lose too much sleep over that. I mean, I still think, what's that?
I was saying 3 wide receivers though: Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, and Jackson Smith in the Jigba.
I mean, Jackson Smith and him still feel like the top 2 guys. I mean, I like Jordan Addison, but I don't know if people are going to like where he winds up getting drafted to. Don't be angry with me when he winds up going to Baltimore. I've been banging that drum, but going to end his value. Man, I mean, we've talked about him a lot, so you can refer back to everything about his size, his frame, his speed, his athletic ability. At this ADP, I still feel like that's very good for a single QB. I feel like he can go top 4 in single QB.
He's a hold at that one, because that's about exactly where I have him. I've actually moved Zay Flowers ahead of him. I've submitted to the guys over, you know, Cody Carpentier is a huge fan. I've been listening to him, and I just can't help it. You know, I think Zay Flowers does the things downfield that Quentin Johnston should be doing. He does them better. You know what I mean? It just at his small size.
We talked about this before. He's like, Zay feels like a hybrid of what you can get from Johnston and Jackson Smith and Jigba, because he has that shiftiness. He has some strength. He has just the hybrid of both of them, you know, of both of their strong skill sets. I
was just chopping it up with J Dynasty actually before this podcast, and he has Quentin Johnston still at number 2, and he was talking about the upside case, and that's what it is, the upside case. I guess I can't play. If I'm going to argue that Israel Bandaconda is an upside case, and that's why I'm taking him. It's the same thing with Quentin Johnston. I absolutely see why you'd rank him as wide receiver 2, because if he works out, he has a much higher ceiling than the Zay Flowers or even a Jackson Smith and the Jigba. If things work out perfectly. Now, it's not a likely range of outcomes. It's not, right. It's an unlikely outcome actually, but he just has all those physical tools that you're looking for. So Quentin Johnston, polarizing player. So hopefully we still see that strong draft capital. Next up, I have Michael Mayer at 14.59, no tight end premium. So that is an early second round pick. Where you like it then? All right. How do you?
He's sure-handed. I still don't understand this. I was on Front Yard Fantasy this week, and great show, by the way. Go check them out on YouTube. They have a fantastic fantasy football game show format. It's a ton of fun. You'll absolutely enjoy it. And one of the questions was, we were doing like in the war room. That was the Jeopardy category, and it was according to FanDuel, what tight end has the highest odds to go off the board first. And of course, in my head, it wasn't even my question, it was somebody else's. I said Michael Mayer in my head, like, of course, it's got to be. And the answer wound up being Dalton Kincaid. I just don't understand. I still don't understand that. And I kind of felt bad. I was like, I was nodding my head when the guy said Michael Mayer. He got it wrong too. And yeah, they're like, nope, he's a plus option, plus 150. Kincaid's minus 140 to go first. And I just don't get it. Like when I look at Dalton Kincaid, try to forgive the pun here, he looks like Dalton Schultz. Like he looks like more of a wide receiver, tight end type of hybrid. He doesn't look like a guy that's going to be able to set the edge, that's going to be able to help you in run and pass blocking. Michael Mayer is all of those things. He may hit the seam slower than Kincaid, but he's sure-handed. He's got size, and his overall frame and body of work, to me, fits way more in today's NFL than Dalton Schultz does. Or sorry, Dalton Kincaid. See, there I go. I can't get these guys, differentiated in my head. Damn Dalton business going on here. All these NFL players, stop naming your kids Dalton. It's driving me crazy.
I like, I agree. I've been going back and forth. I'm obviously a little higher on Kincaid than you, but I did settle this week and I put Michael Mayer at the top of my rankings for everything you said. He's a good pass blocker, strong frame. He's going to play more of an inline, old school tight end role, strong contested catcher, more of a chain mover. And I think that's where the people kind of are. Are you shooting for Travis Kelce? Because if that's the case, that's not Michael Mayer. He's not going to be. I don't think he has the ceiling to be enter that Mark Andrews.
I don't think he has the footwork or the release to do that. But at the same time, what he can do is catch the ball when you need him to. You don't need him to hit the seam. He's sure-handed and big, which is what a tight end should be. And he's a pure fucking athlete. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if you look at this guy, he looks like a beast. Put him in an NFL weight room this summer, he is going to look like a monster come week 1, I'm telling you. And that's just year 1. Like, when you translate to the NFL, it's a different level of fitness. It's a different level of dieting. Everything's going to change for these guys. Like, look at Tua right now. Tua looks huge. He never looked this big. Tua was tiny when he came in the league. Look at Marquise Brown. These guys are just going to get bigger, stronger, faster, and more athletic once they get A1 world-class training and fitness going on. Like, if you think they're good now, wait till you wait another season. It's going to be nuts.
Yeah, and the great thing about Michael Mayer is, so many of these tight ends are projects. This is a guy who has over 800 yards 2 years in a row, massive part of the Notre Dame offense. So you're not wondering, like, there's some guys like a Luke Musgrave or Darnell Washington. They've never done it. You're just drafting them totally based on the athletic potential. Michael Mayer
look like,
obviously the safest floor. I see, he's in the conversation with like a Pat Fryermuth. That was my dog shaking. They start getting restless when I start getting the hour 45 minute of podcasting. I was doing an hour before this, so.
Yeah, they're also not down with Michael Mayer disrespect.
Yeah, they're not. They don't like that either. That got their attention. So
good boy.
But yeah, like I said, he's a super safe floor, and I expect him to be a solid player for a long time. I've been flirting putting him as my Dynasty 7 or 8, tight end 7 or 8, and that's just where we are. He's immediately in the tight end 1 conversation because it's such a barren landscape. Now, I do have another tight end. I have 3 tight ends up in a row. This is fun. Darnell Washington at 27.17. That is in the early 3rd round, and that's a sell for me, honestly. I'm not getting it. It's rich. Darnell Washington has has a lot of physical tools. He's 6'6", 264 pounds, and he dominated the NFL Combine. 4.64 40-yard dash, freakish for that size. 2nd fastest shuttle at the Combine. Impressive in pass catching drills, but why I have to give a little trepidation to that is that he kind of moves like Rob Gronkowski out there in the sense that he's not fluid. He doesn't, although he has top line speed, like he's not getting in and out of his breaks very well. He doesn't have a lot of agility there because he's just so big. And so that's why a lot of teams were even talking about moving him to tackle after the NFL draft. That is not going to happen. I wouldn't worry about that. I think but still, that just shows you that people are not sold on him as a tight end. He had never exceeded above an 8.4% target share, 45 career receptions. Like I said, this is not Michael Mayer production. This is we're projecting because we love the physical tools. I think you agreed, though. Is Darnell Washington a sell for you as well?
This is round 3 ADP, correct?
Yeah.
He's round 4. That's
Okay.
that's too high. You're not even looking at the tea leaves. You're looking at the dude's legs and arms and his height. That's what you're getting caught up in. And I get that because he's got a huge ass wingspan. His catch radius is going to be massive. But this is someone who is completely indicative of their landing spot. I can see him going a lot of places and not touching the field very much in 2023. Good project, gives me Jelani Wood vibes. I just drafted Jelani Woods in probably, I don't know, around 12 or 13 as my second tight end in a startup. That may be very well where Darnell Washington is a year from now. He's just like, maybe he'll be something in year 2. Maybe he'll be something in year 3. He's going to need a very good opportunity in year 1 to make a difference and be worth that ADP, in my opinion. Mid 4, late 4 for me.
Yeah, I just don't see him being a fantasy difference maker. He's a really good blocker. So you know what I mean? I think he could, and he's going to be an NFL tight end for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
I think. I just don't think that'll end up being a fantasy role. So I'm a little bit of sell at that ADP as well. The next player I have up, though, is someone I'm really excited about. I have him as my tight end 3, Sam Laporta. Yeah, just has everything that I think you're looking for in a tight end. I just can't believe he's not a little bit actually higher in a lot of people's rankings. Extremely tough to tackle, 4.59, 40-yard dash, 85th percentile speed score, 76th percentile burst score. Checks all those athletic boxes. Yep. Over 650 receiving yards the last 2 years, over 21% target share 3 years in a row. You know, not projected to be a strong blocker, but a willing blocker. Some people laugh at that, you know, because, yeah, he doesn't have the frame to be like a super inline blocker at the NFL level, but he did play 112 slot snaps last year, so he's probably going to be more of a slot / lining offline tight end here, kind of in that it's called a move tight end, I think is the word people are referred to as now. He is that kind of smaller tight end frame. This has not been great for fantasy recently. It's kind of that Evan Ingram mold, but there have seen some success, and I really like the upside. You know, have you done some research on Sam Laporta? What are your feelings?
I feel good about him at this ADP. That's for sure. That's 4th round, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel a lot better about that than I do about Darnell Washington. I mean, don't get me wrong, man. Iowa, they know how to build some tight ends. George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson. I'm not saying he's going to be those guys, but you know, they've been, you know, an institution of the tight end, if you will. Great after the catch. He can break tackles. Yeah, I mean, you might be worried about the size at only 6'3", but I feel like there's going to be a team that makes him a weapon and includes him. And I could see him having more early first-year involvement than, say, a guy like a Darnell Washington. So I would put both of them right somewhere around in the 4th round, of course, depending on your need and your roster and your build. But at that ADP, I feel much safer than I would Darnell Washington, you know, whatever, 5 to 7 picks earlier.
You know, yeah, I just feel like, you have to banking on a total athletic profile has not worked out lately either. So, you know what I mean? It's just usually got to show something. So Darnell Washington, you know, the fact that he just never was able to get any significant part of that Georgia offense is a little bit concerning. The next player I have up here is who I compare to a light version of George Pickens, Jonathan Mingo. You know what I mean? He's very strong blocker, very physical, strong contested catcher. You know what I mean? He has a very strong size-adjusted athletic score, physical frame. One of the few big receivers in this class, fits that that typical alpha kind of physical profile. So not a strong collegiate production to back that up, though. Kind of doesn't have top-line speed. Well, Jonathan Mingo is someone who in the previous show I just had as my wide receiver 10 in these rookie drafts. So I had him as probably on the border more of an early 3rd round pick. So this is actually a solid buy at this ADP for me as a late 3rd round pick. I have him as more in the early 3rd round. And so what's your analysis on Jonathan Mingo?
I've seen him pretty much going at the same ADP. So late 3rd, early 4th, I'm just fine with. Has a nice physical build. Definitely somebody that is going to be able to go up to the point of the ball, bring her down. There's really no glaring concerns, I guess. Just the overall analytics aren't like great on him. You know, he's not ranked at the very top. Could be a sneaky ADP climber post draft if he gets a decent landing spot, but I don't see him getting drafted till late day 2, day 3.
Yeah, I mean, in late day two, I think I think he would rise a lot if he got late day two draft capital. That would cause him to rise a lot. Even in the fourth round, I think early fourth round he'd go up a little bit. So I like Jonathan Mingo at that ADP particularly. There's a question of obviously why he wasn't better in college.
Mm-hmm.
So that production is obviously the big glaring hole on that profile, but yeah, I really like Jonathan. I like all the physical tools, and in a draft where there's only been mostly smaller wide receivers, I like a little bit of a different flavor.
I like him more than the next guy that we're about to talk about. So the next guy that we're going to talk about, I would still prioritize less than him.
So that is Trey Palmer, the next man up here as we lead into that. And you're on the opposite side of a lot of people. Like in recent, he's a big recent riser. And Cody Carpentier over at Player Profile does his dog rating. Like who's got that dog in him, and he ranks very high in that dog rating category. He tested very well at the NFL Combine, 4.33 40-yard dash, little burner. He spent his early career at LSU, where he did not do much, playing behind Jamar Chase and that very talented, Justin Jefferson. So he had to transfer to Nebraska, where he was productive. So, what are your feelings? Why aren't you as high on Trey Palmer?
I mean, to me, he's just all speed. Like that's what you're going to get out of him. So, I mean, honestly, like if I'm looking at him or like a Jalen Hyatt, they're opposite ends of the ADP spectrum. But yeah, if you want a discount Jalen Hyatt, then yeah, you can get Trey Palmer, but I feel like he's going to be relegated to a special teams type of role. Yeah. I just don't see all of the physical traits there. He has a little bit of size on someone like a Jalen Hyatt, but again, he's just a speed guy. That's his gadgetry. I don't think he's going to be a big priority in red zones. I don't think he's going to be a big volume guy. Again, landing spot can change that. But he has, what I feel is a skill set or a toolbox you can break out, 3 to 4 times a game. You really don't have to overuse him.
He was my wide receiver 11, so I tend to agree with that. And where did he slot in this ADP at 40? So yeah, I have actually probably him a little bit. So I guess he would probably be a buy for me at that ADP. I have him a little bit higher than 40.7.
I don't hate the ADP so much as I just like other like Mingo. I would go with Mingo at that late ADP because sell me another big physical receiver at that ADP other than him.
There really isn't any in this class.
And there's speed everywhere. There's speed everywhere in this class. I mean, I was about to reference Deuce Vaughn. That's going back to the running back position, but there is speed everywhere. I like all of these guys are fast this year.
It is a speedy class, but like I said, a lot of undersized players. The NFL is changing, though. You see, if you average out the top 24 wide receivers and their weight, the weight keeps decreasing every single season. So we are seeing the NFL shift a little bit. Justin, with that, we're going to wrap it up here. What's going on at SGPN this week?
Everything, man. Everything.
I love it.
We got this great show dropping later tonight. We got an IDP show dropping. We've always got the good stuff. We've got Dynasty. We've got Best Ball going on. Last week was a bit more of a highlight week. Me and Andrew had Pete Overzet on for our underdog draft, our live underdog draft. We'll have another one of those upcoming this week. Been a lot of fun. But yeah, man, just checking boxes, writing articles, talking to good folks like you on the camera screens here. Usual stuff. Yeah.
Andrew and Justin always do a good job of getting a big guest on their podcast. SGPN's been doing that a lot lately. There's been a lot of fun guests on these podcasts. We even had Sam Acho joining Justin Mark and his wife. And, that's crazy. You know what I mean? So SGPN's doing big things out there. I'll be, I have multiple, if you follow me, you'll see all the content. I do articles every week for TWSN, SGPN. I do a podcast for the Face Off Sports Network. I do articles for Player Profiler, so you can see all that. Thank you for joining us, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.